Hello, welcome back to City Planner Plays, where we are building the city of Verde Beach. And in the previous episode, if you were an eagle-eyed viewer, you were taking a look at the budget, watching us plummet below $1 million in our bank balance. This is a problem that can happen when you're building the city, and it's a problem that can happen because you haven't maximized and really optimized your industries. So in today's episode, we are going to optimize our industries, look for other budget leaks, and ensure that we are making the maximum profit we can in our city by building some factories. So let's dive right in. And the very first thing I want to do is look at our universities. So we have a policy enabled that is really costing us a ton of money. So if we come in here and we take a look at our policies, you'll see that number one, we don't have sponsorship deals, which means that we are paying the full cost of our varsity sports. We are going to take this, enable this policy, which will decrease the cost of our varsity sports. Look at that, $94,000. We also have free universal education for the time being. I think we might take that off. Let's look at our attractiveness. We have plenty of attractiveness. So we are just playing the game at this point. I think universal education is an excellent policy. And truthfully, I think that the way that we do higher education in the US is madness. That said, we're gonna do it because we need to maintain our budget. We're gonna put that back on later on down the line. Now, interestingly, the Pyrotechnic is actually a more prestigious university than the Goodall Institute at this point, but I guess that's where we're at. So we're gonna have the fan club support so that we can make sure that they're winning lots of games. We're gonna have enact the sponsorship deals over here, and again, get rid of universal education. We should also take a look at our academic staff. I didn't do that at the previous university, but we're gonna take a look because we don't want a whole bunch of staff. Yeah, there we go. We've got a bunch of staff here. It's $5,000 extra per week that we don't need to spend. And already we're up at $116,000 per week, but we can do even better. So let's look at our Drake oil industry. And I just want to make sure that all of these buildings are actually functioning. So I'm just going to click through some of these. And what you see is that it looks like our paper and plain timber is not in a good place here, which is interesting because I believe that we have warehouses that have all of this. And there we go. It's full. So what we're going to do is set this to balanced, and hopefully this will export more here rather than just working hard importing all of these goods. That was not our goal. So we'll click through, and I see that we have these set to balanced, and we're going to speed this up for a second and see if this fixes our issues. Okay, and the paper filled up almost immediately, but the timber, for whatever reason, is not filling up. And the interesting thing is we only have 3 out of our 10 freight trucks in use. That's really frustrating. I think we're gonna need to do something about that, and maybe it's add another warehouse over here. I'm not sure exactly why this wouldn't be operational, but no worries, we can do something about that. So let's add another warehouse over here for this. And while we were waiting, it got filled up. So there we go. Now, one of the things that you'll notice, and I often wouldn't do anything with this, is we have a production rate here. Right now, it's 880 per week to upkeep this. If we crank this, it's not 100% linear to get to 150. So let's think about what the production actually is per unit. I take that back. It is 100% linear. So what we're looking at is 8.8 cells per 1%. So that is a totally linear equation. So if we have the materials to actually produce, why don't we crank it up? That makes perfect sense to me. And we're over here, so let's clean up some of these lumpies and bumpies with a little bit of landscaping, because this really bugs me. Okay, so it's not perfect, but it's a lot better, and I like the way this looks. So let's look at the rest of our buildings. We've got our household plastics factory. We got tons of production here, so why not crank that up? And I'm gonna take a look at all of the warehouses to make sure that they're set to balanced. And looks like for the most part, we're doing good. We have a clothing factory here. Our crops look a little bit low, so we've got to figure out where our crop storage is. It looks like we are right here. And that's set to fill too. So let's get this to balanced. We've got 4 of them. And now when we look at this, hopefully this thing fills up soon. It looks like they're all going to export everything, which Okay. Not exactly what we're looking for. We've quickly run out of crops here, so hopefully that's resolved quickly. And I think it will be. Okay, and there we are. We've got that filled up and we're ready to go. So feeling very good about that. And I don't think we really have any other industries over here, just these. So there's a couple of things that we could do to streamline things over here. I think that we could certainly have a little bit more storage for our crops. That's not very much. Let's see what we can do. How does this fit in? Too big. I'll just add a couple more over here for crops, and hopefully that'll work to fill this up and keep this thing moving. So feeling good about that. I'm wondering, what does our traffic look like over here now that I've done all that? Pretty standard. And what this is going to do is generate a ton more revenue for us. And I'm excited. We should actually really pop into our budget and see what our factory looks like. What we see is we've got about 12% of our total city profit coming in, the income coming in from this industry. So we're making a ton of money, or all the industries together, rather. So we don't really have any that look terrible. Our ore industry is not generating any income right now, but that's an export thing, and that's completely fine. So now that we have this going and we're making money, and our budget, we've already doubled what we had before, I think that we could take it up to the next level. But I did want to point out one thing over with this new industry area that I don't think I really did before. One of the reasons why I love the location of Johnson Aggregates in Verde Beach is the location proximity to our dual cargo train terminals. So this doesn't have a terminal right in the industry, and that stinks. But I think the work it would take to get this over here versus just allowing those vehicles to come through here and access our industry via surface transportation, it's not really worth it. And I don't think it would happen. We have a dual terminal over here that's functioning well enough. So why not take advantage of it? So here we are. It's working fine. And my guess is if we come and take a look at our traffic routes, yeah, you've got some of those routes coming right in here. They're taking advantage of this. So there is a lot of traffic here. And I'm not going to sugarcoat that. There's a lot of traffic, but it's functioning fine. Industrial traffic looks okay, and this bridge isn't overloaded, so I think we're fine. So we have a lot of other factories that we haven't built yet, though. So let's go into our garbage and industry and take a look at our unique factories. And what we'll see is we built 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these, and we have many more to go. 6 of these, many more to go. And what is this one? A shipyard. So that is one reason why we might want to get this up to a 5-star industry at some point. And I wonder how far we are away from this. Quite a bit. We'd have to do quite a bit to get this to level up. So we'll see. We're going to need to get there at some point. But I've been looking and scoping out where it might make the most sense to build this industry. And I'm really leaning towards this area right here. But there are a couple of reasons for this. First of all, just excellent freeway access right here. Nothing else really using this besides some warehouses that have general goods storage. And look at that. Really a lot of goods in there, which makes me happy. But a lot of space here, good freeway access. And I believe that we could fairly easily bring a cargo train line over here. We're far away from the city, not too disruptive, and I'm feeling good about this as a location as a result. So we are going to build some of our unique factories over here, make sure that we have parking, make sure that we have enough storage for all of our buildings, some large warehouses, and really make this our industrial hub. This is where most of the revenue of the city is going to be generated. Let's think about one thing though, as I've looked at this, and we have a bakery over here. No animal products. So we should take a look at this last one. Balance, I just need to get it over here. We're gonna crank this one as well. Make all the money that we can. Hopefully our supply chain doesn't break down. So let's look at our factories and see the first one we wanna build. So industrial steel actually makes a ton of sense in this location. One of the reasons why is we have the water access right there. So I think that if we reoriented this, so we don't want it to jet out into the water like that necessarily. We take a look at the image. They're showing it just kind of on a flat pad. We don't want to do that. But what we're going to do is add a local street off from here and add this industrial steel plant. Now we're going to need to be very careful of a couple of things. So I want to make sure that we aren't going to inadvertently make it impossible to actually place. We should look at our terrain too. Terrain's fine. We want to make sure it's not impossible to place our cargo terminal in the future. Now I said the terrain was fine, but I'm going to let perfect be the enemy of good here. And let's give ourselves a totally flat pad to work with. And we're gonna have to expand this out a little ways. I think we're gonna expand this out and add a key wall along the side, because I don't think it makes a ton of sense just to allow this thing to erode into the water. And then I wanna come and take a look and see, is there any reason to have access on this side? No, but there is a reason to have access on this side, so we're going to add it. And over here, we're gonna add some parking. Now this road turns a bit, so I want this parking to line up well. I'm gonna create a temporary road here. We'll add that in, and I'll need to work on these nodes because they're not right. I'll also need to flatten this out a bit because this will look absolutely terrible if it's not flat. The asset that I created doesn't do well with terrain. So there we go. Got our little parking lot here. We'll fill this in with some landscaping. We'll fix traffic at the very end. And now we know that we have two things that we need. We need a metal storage building, and we also need the ability to store some unique factory goods. So we're gonna have some smaller storage for our metals. And then as far as our unique factory goods, I think we're gonna have a large storage building for those. So let's go ahead, we'll have a metal yard here. We'll face that on the local road, not the collector. And we'll set this to metals. So this should load right up, be able to come in here. It should work really well. And you know, I said there was no need to have a road here. I kind of want one. Now the reason I want this road is really a game mechanic thing, and that's the key wall. It's going to be a lot easier to place my key wall here if I have some sort of road to clip onto. And you see that made that very easy. I just used my road guidelines there, and I have a perfect key wall. Now, one problem is that I'm gonna need to have rail going along here. So let's give ourselves some space for rail. And the road guidelines are kind of messing us up. Coming in with an overhead view, we'll turn off road length. I really just want the grid, and I'm gonna get one tile away and place this, and it'll even it out really nicely for us. And I'm thinking there might be value in creating some circulation through here. So why don't we do that? We will attempt to create our own circulation pattern. This will not be leaving the community. So let's have one way in and one way out. Okay, so that's frustrating. There's lots of weird things happening with heights here. And you'll experience that sometimes when you're trying to create your own shoreline. And part of this is just being patient. So I'm gonna hold off on the key walls to the very end, I think. And one of the reasons for that is we just have water spilling over. I had to delete this to try to get this height completely right, and it's looking better now, but very, very frustrating. So now this thing is operational, and just like the rest of our factories, we want maximum money. So we're gonna crank that thing up. Look, we've already got some workers parking here. Very good. And I need to create a new asset, because what you can see right off the bat is that we have some accessible parking stalls on the outside of either. That's not right. So at some point I'll make another asset so that we have some with accessible parking, some without. Maybe I'll make a whole series of parking assets. Let me know in the comments if that's something that you're interested in me doing. Okay, so here we have a frontage road that we've been using, and I think we're gonna maintain that frontage road. And I just cut off power to this whole area, not worried about that. We will just add that back in and get rid of this one. So it might have been nice to have a frontage road over here as well. We are gonna have a little bit of a frontage road. I think that particularly for our cargo station, it's gonna make a ton of sense. So why don't we go out for here, bring this in, and we'll loop that down. And you'll see that I'm changing everything to the industrial roads over here. To me, this makes a lot of sense. These look like they're concrete, whereas this is asphalt. Asphalt would not handle the heavy vehicles quite as well, and would need to be replaced much more frequently. So upgrading these to be concrete, we don't really care about the noise, we care about the maintenance here, and this would be a lot better in that regard. Okay, so the reason why I wanted to upgrade this is we're gonna need another little hub for our unique factory goods. So what I'm gonna do here is add another large warehouse. This one I'm gonna orient in a different direction. And the main reason for that is I'm going to create a circulation pattern with this warehouse in particular, because all of our industries are going to be facing this. Or rather, not facing, but they're going to be using this. They're going to be interfacing with this. And there is a little bit of terrain here. You can see it goes up a little ways. There is likely some value in flattening that. So I think we're going to go ahead and not let perfect be the enemy of good here. So there's certainly value, but you know, every now and then we've got to let something go. And I think this might be it. Although it looks really bad. Really, no, we can't do it. And that, my friends, is why you just sometimes need to let things go. Didn't fix it. The only way to fix it would likely be to move everything, remove everything, change it all. And that's really just not a great solution. It's just, I could spend all day doing this. There is a solution and I'm not going to take it. That's adding moving. So we're not going to do that, but that would certainly work. All right. So I wanted to add this here so that we can get our cargo train station figured out right off the bat. So we're going to fill in some of this area so that we can add our cargo train station. We're going to need to purchase some soil to make this happen, which is unfortunate because I think at a future build, we're going to have a whole bunch of soil available to us after what we plan on doing, but we'll save that for another day. And now we have that nice and centered here, looking good. Everything's flooded out, just as we had hoped, I guess. So there we go. Now I'm going to add this road here. We're not going to add anything to this just yet, but this will be a very valuable place for storage. We're not even going to connect these up. We just want to have the ability to rotate some of these around. Nope. Just kidding. We've got to back this road out a little ways. So there we go. Rather than loading up this, which is going to kind of function as a collector through here, we'll have a true local road, a cul-de-sac that will function as we were hoping. So now I want to cut this back across so we can make our connection here. We're just going to extend this out a little ways. Actually, we'll let it go. And maybe we'll start thinking about our next factory. So let's go ahead and take a look. We'll get a couple more in here today. And I want to have some that have some synergy so we don't have to have a whole bunch of different warehouses today just yet. So the electronics factory looks pretty good. And if we do that, we could add our the soft paper kind of needs everything. And our food factory, this is not a great location for it. We're gonna wanna get that closer to the farm. But our modular house factory could work really well over here. So I think we're gonna place those. And I'm gonna temporarily locate these. Well, no, that's really expensive. There's nothing temporary about locating that. So let's just flatten out our pad right off the bat. So I'm gonna spread this out. We'll give some room on the side for parking, and we'll do that on both sides and leave some space just generally so that these buildings have a little bit of room to expand. That's something you'll often see in industrial areas, is that the buildings are spaced far apart. And the reason for that is oftentimes the owners want to leave room for future expansion. And they already have the plans in place to do so whenever the funding becomes available or the expansion becomes necessary. So this is going to require plastics, glass, and timber. So let's add one more factory in here as well. And I think we're going to go with our electronics factory, which will use many of these exact same materials. Okay, and here I just wanted to make sure that the space, I'm being as space efficient as possible. And I want to mirror what I'm doing over here. So I deleted that power line so that I could see the way that I connected this up before. And truthfully, I may want to do this again. I think we're going to pull this through in another way because those guidelines are just so important right now, and I don't have them. So that's really making this a challenge for me. We'll add a temporary power line through here, and that's a huge benefit for me. The main reason I want that is I want this the frontage road and the road that I'm trying to mirror to more or less be completely equidistant. So it's a little bit of a trick. We're going to use our freeform tool and try to meet up with some guidelines. and it's going to work very poorly for us. So that's not perfect, and I could spend a whole bunch of time on this, but I think it's probably perfect enough. We're going to leave this right here, this little space. I think that we are going to have some sort of industrial park sort of park in there, and you'll see these from time to time. It's becoming really prominent and desired, and that is the reason for that is that, you know, sometimes you actually want your employees to be able to go out and exercise in their lunch breaks. Here in the US, where everyone has health insurance that they have to pay for, you can actually see benefits to an employer's bottom line for their health insurance when they do things like this. So it's becoming more and more common practice that they're requesting these sorts of things, and we're gonna simulate that a bit. And I mentioned the power line thing, and now I'm breaking those power lines that I just placed, which seems a bit silly, but you know, gotta do what we gotta do. There we go, and everything should jump here, so we should be looking good. So now we have a bit of a circulation pattern back here. We'll need to make a couple more connections, but you see that these junctions, for the most part, are pretty far apart, which is our main goal here. Let's get some water through here so that we can at least have that ready. And now that's set up. So we need plastics, we need glass, and they're bringing it over here, but this is not an ideal situation for us. So we're gonna sneak these in the back here. And you really get a sense of scale for these buildings, because holy cow, they just take up so much space. So with these, let's go with something a little bit bigger, because we have 2 factories using these. Truthfully, we may even want to do that with our metals, and I'm really second guessing this road that I placed back here. Let's go ahead, we'll increase our metal factory, or our metal storage size. So we'll lose all those, which stinks, but gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. I see there's a dip there, we're gonna fill that in. And we'll place this, metals again. Now we need plastics and glass. And again, we have 2 factories taking advantage of this. The primary reason I want to go for a bigger warehouse is the number of trucks. So we're looking at 30 trucks here, and they've got a long ways to go. So we should at least be thinking about that. We're going to place that on the side here. Okay, let's get this water system looped. That is important for disaster resiliency. And we got them right under the road, right where they belong. There we go. So now we should have everything that we need here. We've got glass, we've got plastics, and as these fill in, they'll start taking these to the factories and loading things up. And also get rid of these trees in this it's almost a median. Okay, and we'll load that up with something in the future. So now we've got to focus on our cargo. And that's going to be something that's really important for us. So let's get working. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this height here, pull this around. So we're going to really slow down as we come around here. We're going to shorten that road up, and we're going to pull our train tracks down. There we go. And over here, I think we could have a turnaround. I don't think it's totally necessary. Actually, it probably is. So we're gonna add that turnaround. Now, you know what? We can just expect the trains to reverse through here. No, it's not gonna work. Normally, I think that you could add some crossing tracks through here and allow that reverse to occur. That's gonna be a real challenge here. And I wanna make sure these are connected, so that looks good. Although it's kind of ugly, so let's see if I can improve that at all. I think that is exactly the same. So, there we go. I guess that's how we're doing it. Now I want to pull this up around here, and let's think about this a little bit. So what we're going to do is mirror the highway here, and then go underneath. So I think we're going to elevate the highway a bit here, and well, truthfully, that's not ideal either. So that would be a very expensive project. And at this point, if you're going to build a bridge, I think you build it for the train. Even though in reality, I think that normally you'd really want to see the train have its bridge. So let's see we're not gonna be able to minimize the distance here very easily without having lots of turns. So we're gonna have a very long train bridge here. And I'm wondering, if I can take the height from over here, it'll probably be a much more reasonable bridge. So I'm gonna create a planning road, so to speak. And we'll turn on all of our guidelines. And now we can use this. You know, and I'm not really sure what value that we're getting from that secondary train line, now that I think about this more. So I am going to call a mulligan on what I've done. And we'll just go with one line. I think I'll be able to make it look nicer. And I think it'll just function exactly the same, basically. All right, we got our planning road here. And now that I'm looking at this, as we're coming in, it is going to make a ton of sense to go underneath. So we are going to do that. So let's go ahead. We're going to grab this height and sink it on both sides of our highway so that we can make a tunnel through here. And by tunnel, I mean, we're not going to make a tunnel. We're just going to sever that, create our connection, and then reconnect our highways. Now, that is going to be a little bit more of a challenge than I had expected or hoped. So we are going to need to do a little bit of work here to fix this. So I'll grab this height, pull this over, and I'm going to actually extend this to the other side as well, and we'll do our sloping from here. I'm going to fix that. There's a little bit of a dip there. We're going to get that fixed. That's not going to be okay. And we'll pick this height here and slope up. So that is right mouse clicking our top terrain, coming over to our low spot, left mouse clicking and pulling over to it. Now here it dips just a little bit, and I think we can do better. So let's give it a go. So I'm just going to level this terrain here, and you can see that it drops down a little bit. There we go. There's a little bit of wonkiness. I'd love to be able to fix that, but it's just not gonna happen for us. So this doesn't look beautiful, if I'm being completely honest. That said, I do think that we would want to minimize our distance as much as possible. I'm wondering, could I even make this shorter? If I add a node here, there's the upside down. We will pull this over and attempt to convert this to be ground level. There we go. Then we will rid ourselves of the upside down. Oh, we did not. So that was a poor idea. So sometimes I have those and they don't work. So let's make a bigger bridge and try to make it look at least a little bit nicer. Now, in reality, the highway engineer could give 2 cares less how this looks. They care about it being functional and making sense from a functionality standpoint. That said, it's a game and we want to make it look nice. So we are going to do that. I just want to come through here and change some of these. You start to see that we've got a dip here. That dip should not exist. I'm going to come through with this highway, bring it through, and look at this. Looks a lot better. And maybe the real problem is that it's raising up over here just a little bit. Okay, and that looks a ton better. And this is one of those instances where I think letting perfect be the enemy of good makes a ton of sense, because now our highway looks absolutely fantastic. So let's go ahead and clean this area up. All right, that's looking good. Now, I am concerned though, what do our heights look like? Yeah, that's gonna be something special. So I know that there are a number of people that are very passionate about rails, and I respect and appreciate you, and you're gonna hate what I'm about to do because it's not going to be pretty. So I know that that is a very steep grade. I don't think I have an option, so we're gonna go with it. So there we go. This will function. It might not be the most beautiful thing in the world, but it is going to work. So we're going to go with it. Now here I'm going to extend this height up basically until we get to the shore. We're going to take out our lovely trail. So this is a trail to rail project, which I don't think I've ever heard of those happening. Ooh, oof, that is bad. So we'll need to raise this up as well. There we go. That is our solution, for better or for worse. And maybe we come up with something a little bit better down the line, but for the time being, I do think that this will work well. I wish that this was a shorter span, but it's a rail. So even though I could try to work this over and then have a big crazy turn here, that's not reasonable. I think that the straight, even though it's not the shortest bridge span ever, is probably a better solution. Let's get this thing hooked up so it works. And now we'll get our materials coming right in here, which is going to be lovely. Now I do really want to get that key wall working, and I know that we're gonna need some time to let the water normalize. So I'm gonna come through here, take a look at our grades. We're gonna pull the ocean, or the river in. And it's going to take a little bit of time to normalize. So while that's working and while that's happening, we're going to add some of our parking here that I spoke about earlier. So there is going to be a ton of parking. And look at that road going up for no apparent reason. And that view is really nice. So we're going to pop back in, take a look, and get this thing leveled nicely. Kidding. No, we're not. we're gonna suffer with this and pay for the sins of the past because we have failed in that particular regard. And I could try to make that work, but it's going to be a real gnarly situation. So we're going to just accept a little bit of imperfection. And I think we can have all of our parking right there, and that'll work really nicely. So along this, I'm going to add some sort of fence for portions of it. So let's see what we have in our industrial fences. I always like the forestry and the ore industry fences. I think they look really nice. Let's see if we can sneak one of these in between this asset. So if you get to work late, you're gonna have a bad time because that means that you have to walk a long ways. But, you know, just get to work on time, you'll be fine. So there we go. So we have that there, and it cleans it up a lot. You know, then you get the vanilla trees, which you guys know how I feel about those. But I do think that they have a place, and that place is right here. But also go down this center. We're gonna have some of our tall grasses, kind of do what we did over in the other industrial, kind of by the other cargo station. Just some of our unkept, untamed grasses. I want to have the big ones if I can. So I'm gonna place the ones that aren't so big off to the side. That was a waste of time. So would not recommend doing that. That you know, we'll just go with whatever size it gives us and layer them. That works too. Now, as I was laying these down, I realized that there would be some value in having a walking path along here. I want to see what this does. Yeah, it takes out all of the landscaping I just placed. So we will forget about that, but I'm wondering, can we have some sort of meander? Yeah, and that's hidden. So we don't want to see people going through the bush. So something that might have been a nice amenity, we're going to have to sneak in some paths elsewhere. So let's go ahead. We're going to add some fences through here. We're going to go in the exact opposite direction. Rather than having people be able to come through here and walk, now nobody can walk. Nobody can walk. Okay, so now that we have got that in place, I want to add some trees through here. And you might be thinking to yourself, wow, this seems like overkill for an industrial area. Come on, this doesn't matter. It actually does. So I think that planners have learned from the mistakes of the past, where you just let these areas become, you know, kind of decrepit looking and ugly, and you get some low quality users in there, things that maybe you aren't super excited about. Particularly in the middle of your city. Now this is on the edge, so maybe you're okay with more, you know, recyclers and wrecking sorts of things, or even some other noxious uses such as animal boarding, another one that no one wants to locate next to. Those sorts of things tend to spring up when a place falls into disrepair. You know, if you have a high quality industrial site and you're looking to lease it out, the last thing you want to do is lease it out to a use that's going to attract lower quality uses, maybe that pay less rent, things of that nature, and you're gonna not do that. So that's one of the reasons why it's so important to keep up the appearances of these places and to really give them a lot of care, attention, and planning. So that's why we're doing this. We are trying to make sure that this is a high quality industrial site that attracts high quality tenants. So I would look at this as being a very high quality site at this point in time. So we are running low on metals here. This is full, so it's just a matter of time before that works. Let's go ahead and look at our other factories and ensure that we have maximum production. Again, metals is a concern there and here, which makes me think that maybe we need more metals in this location generally. So I'm gonna add one more warehouse for this, although now it's a bit of a concern. As I look at this, I haven't left myself enough space. So, that was one of the things I wanted to worry about, and I didn't, and now I'm paying the price. So let's go ahead. We're gonna have our road guidelines on here. I'm gonna send this little road across. We want the site that gives us more space to add 2 of these, and these will both be for metals. Now, I don't want to connect these. Again, I do not want to connect these because I do not want there to be any mistake about where the traffic circulation pattern should go. It should absolutely not go through here. I will leave a pedestrian connection through here just in case folks happen to be working here and want, for whatever reason, to come walk over here. So we've got that going. They've dropped off the metals. Now we've got production happening here and here. The other thing that I could see being a demand in this area would be some sort of commercial activity. Folks need to eat lunch. They want to pick up groceries on the way home. So we're going to add a couple of commercial spaces out here. So we talked about parking over here. I don't think it's a huge necessity. Now that we're looking at this, we've got tons over here, so we're probably okay. We could use some over here, so we will add it over here. There we go. And we have water going along there, so we're in a good spot there. What are we missing over here? Plastics and metal again. So we have plenty of glass, not plenty of plastics. We've got some plastics. It'll be just a thing over here. You sometimes will need to wait to get some of those things in place. I'm gonna decorate around here a little bit, and then we are gonna need to take a look at a couple more things. Now I added in a bunch of larger trees. We've got these live oaks and some tall grasses. And what I was thinking about there is I worked on a project in an industrial park where one of the exactions from the developer was actually restoration of oak savanna. So it's a very, it's an ecosystem that is not as prevalent as it used to be, at least in my area. We'll say that they had some oak savanna here as well. And as a result, we've asked them to restore this little area if they're going to get their extra storage sites approved. So there we go. Now I want to add this key wall. I'm very nervous about this. Probably rightfully so. So we're going to have just a couple of things: road guideline, angle, and the grid. Road length does not matter to us. In fact, it's probably not a good thing. So now we're just going to use our road guidelines to draw this into place. You can see that our straight line basically ends here, and we'll come with another straight line over here. And now we need to try to use our freeform tool to make this connection, grabbing our road guidelines. Nice connection. And then we'll clean it up along here. We can obviously do more. We're going to leave some of this undone so that we can do it in the future. Look at our terrain heights. Truthfully, we could do it the real way, the appropriate way, and level this out. We went way down. I don't think that was necessary, so we'll bring this back up, pull this along. Okay, and what you'll notice is that to deal with, oh wow, that is a wave. To deal with the excess soil that I had, I was just backfilling it into the river. So the idea would be that you're digging it here and just kind of dumping it in the center. Probably not something that the DNR loves, the Department of Natural Resources, but we're going to go with it because we're going to do a few things over the next little while that the DNR doesn't love anyway. So we are going to do some things. Now, I'm wondering, ever since they added the ability to change the trees in the road, it can be difficult to be able to place bushes along key walls. Actually, it's a water issue. It believes that there's water here. Okay, so I added a ton of grasses here, and I just wanted it to feel overgrown. Like this is now an untamed prairie, kind of. So I think that it works. It looks all right. I'm pretty pleased with it, truthfully. And it kind of hides the train a little bit there, gives it some separation, and no one's maintaining this, which to me makes a ton of sense. So I'm really enjoying the way that that looks. And I think at this point in time, we've got to take inventory of where we're at, enjoy this wonderful warehouse, and have a brief city tour. Okay, and now with our little industrial powerhouse built, it's going to be interesting to see how things turned out for us. So we take a look, we're losing money. That's not the real story though. We're actually doing a lot better. We have added $1 million to our bank balance. And the thing with industries that you have to realize is that as things export, you actually make the money. So you're going to see these ebbs and flows. When we come in and look at our economy, we'll see is that our total profit is actually through the roof. We've increased this from roughly 12% of our income coming from the industries to over 17. And that's just really making sure that we've got factories, making sure that we are building as much as we can, and ensuring that for the most part, we don't have situations like this one. Right now, this stinks. We've got plastics that are not doing well. We're probably going to need to do something about that at some point in time. And that'll be a future episode. That might even include having some plastics production right on the site over here. Our plastics industry is pretty dispersed at this point in time, our oil industry. So it wouldn't be the worst thing to have some of that plastics production over here, because anything that has plastics is going to be a problem for us. The other interesting thing, we are at about 160,000 population, and we don't have enough workers. So that's going to be a thing that we need to start thinking about. And that'll be for a future episode. For the time being, I hope that you've enjoyed this episode. If you did, please hit the like button. If you are not subscribed, please consider doing so. And I cannot wait to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.